What's going on, family? You guys are so amazing. Listen, I've created a new podcast. Before we do that, here on this channel, our mission is to empower the world to never give up, one interview at a time, one video at a time. This is just the trailer promo video. The reason I came up with this is because some people were asking, a lot of people were asking, how do you choose the right leadership? Especially during this pandemic, COVID-19. We saw leadership that we thought was and leadership that we thought that wasn't showed us differently in this season. Some people dropped the ball, some people carried the mantle and took it to the next level. However, I want to encourage a next generation of leaders. I want to encourage the generation of leaders now. How do you choose great leadership? I picked some amazing brains that's going to give us some advice. But before you get the whole spiel, next week, I'm going to give you a little taste of what you can expect. Let's go.
Worst thing that can happen is for you to have a leader in place and they wreck the brand of the church and of the kingdom, and as the senior or set pastor or leader, you have to take the brunt of it. So I want to make sure that, or offer that we make sure that people are trustworthy, that they're teachable, and that we make sure that they have the heart of God. So post-COVID, a lot of people say when we go back to normal, there is no normal. And this is a good time. This time of quarantine or shutdown has really revealed to many of us who the real leaders are. If your leader has not offered any kind of suggestions, if your leader has not helped you, even though we've not been in church, because this is a time now where there are really a need for officers or the people who are used to being in control, because all we have to focus on is worship. But if you are a real leader, they would have still been calling you, Pastor, I got this idea, how can I help? This has revealed to many of us those who have been in positions but really have no purpose.
You know, one of the things, Dr. Jackson, that has really sparked me coming into ministry, how leadership is coming in as a young pastor. Coming in at a time where people are wanting to expect something from you, but not willing to give you the respect that comes with the expectation.
Wow. I even ditto that. I think even for me personally, and the experience I've had over 20 years now is expectation, finding it hard to, lead by example.
Exactly.
Because Jesus was the ultimate servant.
Exactly.
Servant
The
leader.
theme for this year was coming from Proverbs 23, 7 and A, and it was entitled Rethinking God's Restoration, God's Recovery, and God's Replenishment. I would have been more intentional on studying that in preparation for this leading through crisis in 2020.
Has really changed. I can remember a time when I was a little boy and I would come to church. And fortunately, I was picked up by an older guy who was a servant leader in the church. We would get there, turn the lights on, turn everything on, so that when the people came, they were ready to be ministered to. Things have changed.
In this 25 years of pastoring and choosing leaders, I discovered that who I chose in 1999 is entirely a different person in 2020. When I think about choosing leaders, I often think about Judas. Sometimes we think that God made a mistake in choosing leaders. But I like to suggest that there was a purpose in the madness why God allowed Jesus to choose Judas.
Leadership? Wow. Leadership is something that has really the definition and the whole persona of leadership has certainly changed once I got into ministry. Leadership, if you want to be a leader, you want to go high, the truth of the matter is you've got to go down.
Choose the right leadership. I think it's very important that we understand, especially in this nuanced 2020 world in which we live in, I think context is very important. I think understanding your context. I think it's very important that leaders of that particular church and the leader that may be inspiring to go to
a church?
Right leadership, I must start out by saying must look at God's model. God's model of leadership deals with order, so that carries us back to Genesis. I don't believe that God's model of the church has changed. You know, He created Adam, then pulled Eve out of Adam, and then they had children, even a substitute. But that just shows God's order.
So the damaging part about it is most church contexts choose youth leadership as a secondary thought. It's never something that they strategically look at. And I think that's the damaging part, because most times they put people who want to be in the youth ministry, or we think that they'd be a good fit in the youth ministry, without doing some type of examination, some type of test. And I think that's so important. You have to find out, who do you have in youth leadership? Why? Because the youth are our tomorrow's leaders. So who do you have poured into your tomorrow's leaders? I think that's something that we need to look at as we choose youth leadership.
But I have to watch the influence of those who that we're looking at to put in leadership. They're always in the church what I would call pew pastors, meaning that when the pastor says something, then there's something about that someone on that pew that's going to go to another person on the pew and say, "What do you think about it?" Usually that person could be a good leader, but it's how that person used their influence to help lead the ministry that you put.
Listeners, but they're great givers, they're great supporters. But when they listen to you, they can really catch your spirit, they can catch your heart, and even catch the ideas that God is placing inside of you. And with listening comes correction. You can't be a leader if you can't be corrected. I can suggest that for me, I'm one of the hardest people on myself. But I have people strategically in my life that I keep around, not to be just cool with, not to just have a cigar with, but if I need you to get in my tail, I need you to get in my tail.
And go to the next level where you need to go to in leadership. And I believe in leadership is all about the vision. I believe that God gives every church a pastor with a vision, and then He gives the leaders of that church ideas to help the pastor's vision. So I think that's vitally important as well.
Leadership that's selected, and then we also talk to the ministry, whatever ministry that leader is going to be put over. What's the relationship? So there's several things that we do. We just don't choose somebody and appoint them. And then lastly, we have a conversation with the person through our new membership academy. We have a new membership academy, and so that's where we can have conversations on what interests that person, what's their background, so that we're making sure that we're putting the person in the right position according also to the gift, talents, and abilities. So that is how we vet and choose leadership, especially going into the 21st century. We cannot have the wrong leadership, the wrong leader in that position. Rather than put that leader, the wrong leader in a position, is rather to leave that position.
How do you choose the right leadership? In my opinion, I believe that is a time-honored question. I learned after spending 23 years, 10 months serving my country in the United States Army, that leadership is the ability to influence others by providing purpose, motivation, and direction. When choosing a good leader, one has to look for a good follower. I learned a long time ago when I was pastoring my first opportunity to be able to do so in Iraq. One of the chaplains told me that learning occurs when teaching happens. I've come to realize that if you're going to be a good leader, you have to be first a good follower. And what does that really mean? What it really means is leaders look for somebody that are willing to humble themselves and go beyond the norm. Many leaders nowadays can be made, if you will. But I believe in the ability to have a true born leader. One must have a lowly mindset. One must be humble. One must be willing to serve as Christ has served. If we remember the story when Peter asked a question about Jesus preparing to wash their feet, and Jesus told them, this small thing, paraphrasing, this small thing that you see me do, you should also do. And I've come to realize that leaders lead by example.
Because if you're not loyal to your pastor, that means that every time I go to try to do something, you won't be able to follow instruction. And that's so important when you try to lead people, because every leader no matter who they are, usually have a field of influence, that circle of individuals that they share with, that follow them. And I tell any pastor, don't ever think that everybody is following you. There's somebody else in the congregation that they will follow also.
That was just a promo video. I'm just giving you a little sample of what you can expect. Next week, I want to help pastors, preachers, church leaders. I want to help you be more effective in your ministry. That's why I created this podcast. How do I choose the right leadership? Just a promo video, just to give you a sneak peek. I need you to tune in next week. Go to YouTube right now, hit subscribe, hit the notification button. So when I drop that video next week, you will get notified and you won't miss a beat. I see you there. Grace and peace.